Hey BookTube, hi, welcome back to my channel. It's really early here in the morning. It's a little after 7 a.m. on February 2nd, which I'm sure this video will go up today. So you will be seeing this, later on. So hi, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. So what's going on today? I am barefaced because I'm going to be putting on some makeup and talking about the books that I read this month in January. And it was a really wonderful reading month. So I'm actually gonna steal this napkin. I have some coffee here, napkin, and then books. As I'm starting to get ready, I'm realizing that I'm not very good at multitasking, so I will try and talk and get ready at the same time and try to be coherent. So here's the deal. I think that my wrap up this month is the best of the best if you like this kind of book. It's all going to be contingent on whether you like the kind of books that I read. But if you like the category, if you're that kind of reader, you will most likely very, very much enjoy all of the reads that I have in front of me, all of the books that I finished. And we'll start off with James Baldwin. So, give me a second. So, James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room was absolutely wonderful. So, if you're the kind of reader who loves to grapple with ideas, but also loves beautiful writing, and I mean grapple with ideas like, can we choose who we love? Do we put our desires over social norms, social customs, societal standards? Do we please our parents, or do we chase after what we want, if those are opposing truths? And all of this our character David struggles with. And so if you're someone who really likes those things, that likes to grapple with bigger questions while also being immersed in a great story, Baldwin is your guy. He's just such a fluid writer. He's got a lot of passion that is really unmatched by other writers that I have read. And he was just a fantastic start to the year. I have a whole review on Baldwin. Not on Baldwin. I have a whole review on Giovanni's Room, and so if you want to check out that review, it's not spoiled or anything. I talk about some of the themes that really stood out to me. But if you're the kind of reader who likes to think, who likes to be challenged, and also just loves really good writing, Baldwin. I would highly recommend Baldwin to you. Okay, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Now, if you're the kind of reader who loves cozy books filled with hope and friendship and love and beautiful writing, but also very scenic writing, if you're somebody who just absolutely loves settings as characters in the book, I think of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and her characterization of, don't worry about the screaming, y'all, he's fine, and the characterization of Manderley. If you like that kind of writing, but you want to experience it not in a suspense novel like Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, but you want a cozy read about friendship and love and the impact one has on others and the world, and also just a really good Bildungsroman, just a coming of age story that's just beautiful. Anne of Green Gables is wonderful. I did, again, a whole review on it, but my review is 10 things to love about Anne of Green Gables, and I reveal how I cannot count all. I talked with Jack from Spread Book Joy, and she reminded me that Anne of Green Gables is incredibly humorous, and I completely agree with that. Anne is so funny, and amid the coziness of the book, the tea times and the working on the land and the friendships and the school scenes, the scenes at school and so on, Jack reminded me that there's a lot of humor in it as well, in the book. And I kind of glossed over that. Sometimes I devalue humor. I don't set it as high as other people, as other readers, and yet I really, really appreciate an aspect of humor in a book. And so I loved Montgomery's humor, the way that she dealt with time, the way that she dealt with characters. I mean, it was all just really good, really sweet, and just an absolutely cozy read. All right, the next book is The Odyssey by Homer. And I read this with the Eclectic Book Club, which is a book club that I run with David Wiley. And I read the Fitzgerald translation. We didn't have a specific translation in our group. I loved it. And if you are the kind of reader who's really into classic literature, you must read the Odyssey. I cannot speak to other translations. I tried out more translations with the Iliad, and I found a translator that I liked, Fitzgerald, and I just really enjoyed his poetic approach, but the poetry is always there as a secondary to tell the story, if that makes sense. So I always felt like the story came first, the characters came first, and then the poetry followed, and it was just so beautiful. I do have my only critique, which is about me and not the book, was that I really struggled through the Iliad, and then it clicked with me, and I loved the Iliad by Homer. And then I felt like it was like not enough time in between the Iliad and the Odyssey to dive right back into a world that was still quite unfamiliar to me. I'm getting more familiar with the ancient Greeks and the way that they're characterizing certain things. Like, for example, dawn, the sunrise is called dawn, which is a character in the book. It's capitalized, and you get this characterization that Dawn spreads her fingertips every morning and stretches out and wakes the world up, essentially. And it just took me a little while to understand that that's what the writing was doing. And so jumping back into that world where I'm slightly afloat, trying to gather my bearings and figure out which way is up. To jump right back into that world, I'm glad I did, because now it's over and I've now read the Odyssey, and I could see its importance in literature. I just wish that I would have waited slightly longer, because I think I would have enjoyed this even more. And so when it came to the question of, do you like the Iliad better? Actually, please answer this. Do you like the Iliad better or the Odyssey better? Please let me know. But for me, the Odyssey wasn't as good as the Iliad, because there was just a moment, y'all know what I'm talking about if you've read the Iliad. There's a moment where I feel like everything becomes unchained and we are off. I mean, we are just out and in battle for a very emotional reason, really gut-wrenching reason, and the story just takes off at this flying speed. And the Odyssey doesn't have that moment. It's definitely more readable and more accessible throughout, but it doesn't have that moment where I was like, I must find out what happens. The Odyssey, I really did like it. I think it's an important read. I think it's, crucial if you are if you're a reader, because there's so many allusions to the Odyssey in future writings. There is so much about the structure and the episodic nature of it that is so great and so important. But for me, it was really good, but not a favorite. Again, I think if I would have waited a couple more months, I think I would have liked it even more. All right, my next book is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. So I did this as a buddy read with Sonja Devaney, who is a wonderful friend and subscriber. Her and I have a lot of overlap on the books that we want to read, and so you may see Sonja's name pop up just a whole bunch more. I'm priming my eyelids for all of you who don't know. This is to make sure that my eyeshadow sticks. This book is wonderful for those who like historical fiction and romance. I did not know that Outlander was a romance novel, and Sonja didn't either. I felt that the love story in Outlander was just so prominent. The story couldn't stand on its own without the epic love story that is intermingled throughout the story. Intermingled. I mean, there was a check-in. There was a check-in, you all, that Sonja and I, we really didn't know what to say, because it was like basically a whole bunch of chapters with lovemaking in them. And it was like, well, I'm really glad that our main characters are getting to know each other. If you don't know what this story is about Claire, who is living in 1945, and through a series of mysterious events, she is sort of plopped in the middle of the 1700s in Scotland, and she's living this life of the past, 200 years ago. And what's hilarious about it, what I thought really worked well, I haven't reviewed this on my channel at all, so what I thought worked really well was that Claire is a nurse, and in the background that she has as a nurse, when she is taken back to the 1700s, she's like, why are you doing that? what about, why don't you have, you know, antibiotics? Why would you put leeches on someone's swollen lip? And Claire's perspective that she brought to the whole novel really added a lot of humor to it. And I thought that that was one of my favorite aspects of the whole book. The fact that she has this medical history, this medical background, and she is set in this setting where medical practices are pretty iffy, to say the least, and she's got a lot of opinions about that. And I really love that. I loved Claire's tenacity and her stubbornness, her willfulness, and in a lot of ways, her very sweet nature. I just thought that she was fantastic. She's smart and loyal, and I don't know, there was just a lot to love about Claire. And then our other protagonist of sorts is Jamie, and he is a Scot, I hope I'm getting that right, living in the 1700s, and he just is the perfect hero. I mean, there was a lot to love about our main characters. I just don't know how much romance is my jam. If I would have known if this was a romance novel, I may have picked it up when I was more in the mood for a romance novel. And again, it's a historical fiction romance. There are huge sections where it's all about sort of like fighting and gore and, you know, that kind of thing. And then there are long sections where it feels a bit like a cozy read. You're just hanging out with the characters, and then something epic will happen, and, you know, there's another scene to take you to the next part where it slows down a little bit, and there's the development of characters and setting, and so there is a lot to like. But again, I'm not really sure how much I would have picked it up if I knew it was so heavy on the romance. Diana Gabaldon's Outlander was fantastic. I really did enjoy it, but you need to make sure that you are down for a little romance, down for some adventure and epic scenes and great characters. You have to be that kind of reader. And it's not that I'm not. I just definitely have to be in the mood for it. The next book I read was Hiroshima by John Hersey. I read this with a real life friend, and I think he's still reading it. We were able to discuss the first part a little bit, but and that was really fun. I'm just waiting for him to finish so that we can continue our discussion about it. What I loved about this book was that as an object, it's very fascinating. It's John Hersey's reporting that was originally printed in the New Yorker about the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima near the end of World War II by the Americans, and he tells it from the perspective of those living in Hiroshima at the time, and you really get a sense of what it would be like on the night the bomb dropped and thereafter, from a whole bunch of different eyewitnesses that Hersey follows around in what I thought was almost music, like a musical score. You're following all these different characters that work together to tell a larger story about what happened in Hiroshima on the night the bomb dropped, or the day the bomb dropped. I get confused because the bomb turned day to night, essentially. It blackens the sky, and so it feels like night, even though it might have been day. But yeah, really, really important story that Hersey tells. I really don't know how to say his last name. Y'all, help me. I'm sure I could look it up. I thought Hersey was extremely respectful when it came to telling a story about what we Americans have done to another country and the effects of high amounts of radiation being dropped in an area and the effects that has on the body. I mean, it was really, really a fascinating work. A difficult work to think about in terms of the damage and destruction and lives lost. In that respect it is, but I thought that Hersey was so delicate and respectful, again, to the people who lived through that night. Very, very good book, and really, really important. Fantastic for those who, again, like nonfiction or would like to get into it. And short, I mean, really easy read. There's no reason why you shouldn't read it, okay? That's how I feel about the book. All right, my next several reads are going to be books that I'm not quite finished with yet. Actually, there is one more piece of literature that I read that I did finish, and I read it on, not my Kindle, but on my iPad, because I can access my library's digital items through my iPad and not my Kindle. Y'all didn't need to know that. But anyways, I read James Baldwin's essay, The Fire Next Time, which was phenomenal. It's only about 40 pages, really, really thought-provoking, really good. I had heard that Baldwin has kind of two different voices that he goes between. Let me grab my... Now I'm getting excited, y'all, while I'm halfway done with my makeup. Okay, so Baldwin has this conversational storyteller type voice, and that is very much how I felt about Giovanni's room. He's telling this sad, somber, heart-achy story that he wants the reader to think about and to ponder with him. Whereas The Fire Next Time, it felt like, though it came from a place of love, it also felt that he was preaching in the best way possible, that he was firm in his belief, that there was a line in the sand and he wasn't going to cross it, but he was telling you how important it is to look at this issue and that this is where he stands on it. And it's, again, done from this place of deep love for his fellow humans, for his fellow people that, you know, are living on this earth. And he wants more and he wants better for our world. And he makes that extremely clear in The Fire Next Time. And it was really, really great to experience Baldwin's voice in a different way and to really get that more preacherly voice out. And I thought it was just powerful essay. I could see definitely why it was widely read. It's probably, I actually thought that Baldwin's a bit more relevant now. He almost sounds like a voice of 2020. He sounds like the voice of now versus the voice that he was back in the, you know, in the 60s. This is not the end of me and Baldwin. I will probably be reading Go Tell It on the Mountain sooner rather than later, and I wouldn't be surprised if I read it this year. The Fire Next Time would be for somebody who loves essays, who loves to read about race and race relations, who also wants to better understand Blackness in America, and who just loves like a good piece of writing. Baldwin. James Baldwin is where it's at, y'all. I really loved The Fire Next Time. Okay, now we're moving into books that I'm not quite done with yet. This happens to me. I just stack my reading. I just read like 6 or 7 books at one time, and they all finish kind of around the same time. So that's what's happening right now. So here we go. Gone with the Wind. I am still reading Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind with a subscriber, George, who is amazing, by the way. George, if you're watching this, I'm loving our conversations. Maybe they can continue after Gone with the Wind. We are reading Gone with the Wind together. I had some time, and so I basically blazed through like 600 pages. I actually switched. So here's the book. I have some tabs, but I quickly decided that this is not the most comfortable read, and I switched to my Kindle, and I have a lot of highlighted notes on my Kindle. So, who is this book for? This book is for people who want to feel confused about a book, who want to grapple with a read, and who are willing to do a little extra work to better understand what was going on, both at the time of the Civil War, but also during the time which Margaret Mitchell was writing Gone with the Wind. One of the things that a lot of people have said to me in the comments, which I love, by the way, I love a good discussion, especially if it's respectful, but one of the things that a lot of people have said in the comments is that you need to remember when the time that Gone with the Wind was written. And much to my slight embarrassment, I couldn't really tell you what race relations looked like in the 1930s. And so I was able to watch a documentary from Georgia Public Television called Margaret Mitchell, American Rebel. And that gave me a lot better more of a context in which Margaret Mitchell was writing. The time period, if you don't know, now if you do know, I'm so sorry that I wasn't on it, and I had to look up all this to better orient myself with the 1930s. This was published in 1936. Margaret Mitchell was born in 1900. The deal is that segregation was really, really prominent, especially in the South at that time. They definitely believed that the construct of race was that Black people are people, but they're different. They're a different race. There is differences, fundamental biological scientific differences between us, which we all know is not true. It's pigment in the skin. whether one's skin is darker or lighter. And so there was, I think, a lot of feelings about race at that time. And I'm not excusing what Margaret Mitchell had said, but I definitely needed to go down a rabbit trail of what the 1930s looked like at that time. And I was able to kind of better orient myself with that time period and also better understand the context in which this was written. And again, it's not all about race. There are good things about Gone with the Wind, and there are not good things about Gone with the Wind, like despicable, sad, frustrating things about Gone with the Wind. I will definitely do a whole review on it. So now that I said something that I didn't care for about it, I really love that I'm learning from this experience. But one of the things that I do love about it are her characters. Scarlett has to be one of the most interesting, intriguing, frustrating, heart-wrenching characters I have ever met, ever on the page. She is just, I mean, she is everything. She's everything and she's nothing. There's just so much to discuss. And I'm really, really thankful that I had the opportunity, and I continue to have the opportunity to discuss this book with George, my buddy reader, who's, again, amazing. I discussed this quite a bit with Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading, and along with just people here on BookTube and my husband, and just getting a better understanding of this topic. Again, I'll probably post a full review about it. So again, I'm not trying to tease anything, but the learning experience, if you want a book where you want to like grapple, learn, be frustrated by, be charmed by in some ways, this is it. This is it. This is everything. And yeah, again, very, very interesting. Also, like, if you know that this topic is gonna make you sad and frustrate you and you don't want anything to do with it, I would say stick with your feelings. But if you're someone who's like, I don't know, I want to know, I just want to know what Gone with the Wind is about, and I would be sad if I didn't ever find out what Gone with the Wind is about, then I would say pick it up and try the first 100 pages, because I think you'll get a better understanding of what the controversy is about, the strengths of Mitchell's writing and the weaknesses of Mitchell's writing, and then you can decide from there. But I'm a huge proponent of just reading the book and deciding for yourself what this book means for you, or any book rather. Okay, as the books go down, because I'm just stacking them over here, the next book is The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. I am more than halfway done with this book. I'm reading this with a book group that we call ourselves the Up to No Good Book Club. It's really just a reading group that we've formed and continue to stick together, basically. And that's Jolene from Bookworm Adventure Girl, Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, and AJ Dunn of AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. And then two subscribers, Sonja, again, who I've mentioned, we read Outlander together, and Deb. All wonderful people. The Mirror and the Light has been an interesting experience for me because on the one hand, I really love Mantel's writing. If you don't know what The Mirror and the Light is about, this is the third book in the Thomas Cromwell series, where she follows Cromwell from like the beginning of where he starts to serve King Henry VIII all the way up to his death. And it's a historical fiction. It's very fictionalized. I don't think Cromwell was actually like this, but the telling of his story is very, very interesting. So Mantel's writing is phenomenal. Her references, the way that she constructs sentences and draws out these beautiful long metaphors is beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. So on the one hand, I love reveling in her gorgeous writing, and on the other hand, I feel like this final installment is dragging a little bit. So there are 6 sections. I've read section 3 and I've started on section 4, and the middle of section 3, chapter 2 and section 3, to me it was like, we need to move this plot forward, please. Not that I didn't like it. Her writing, Mantel's writing, stays consistent and beautiful throughout. I just have a harder time when the plot is not moving forward. I have a feeling that she's going to take a page from the Iliad, and in that, structurally, in that Mantel, I think, is going to spend probably about 500 pages. This is a 700 plus page book. She's going to spend about 500 pages developing, detailing, laying the story out in this sort of, where there's not a lot of excitement or plot points that go up and down and resolve and stuff and such. But what I think is she's going to develop and develop and develop. And when there is about 100 to maybe 200 pages left, the story is going to take off and everything is going to come together and all of those details are going to make sense and it's going to be off to the races and it's going to be a fantastic read. And that structure is very much the structure of the Iliad. And so I think that that's what Mantel is headed towards with The Mirror and the Light. But it also means that there is a longer sections, primarily probably my guess is about the first 500 pages, where you're just building the story and the details of the story and the nuance of that story, only to see it all come together at, again, probably what I'm guessing will be about the 500 page mark. That's my guess. Still a great book. I will definitely talk about the whole series when I'm done with this, and I mean, I couldn't have asked to read it with a better group. Even though I said what I said about section 3, I'm sorry, Mantel. I really do love this book. I really need to get some new mascara because Harry chewed this up. But yeah, okay, so I did start Candide. I read it for the whole of one day. I didn't finish. I haven't finished. I'm only about a quarter of the way through. And it is indeed a satire against optimism. Our main character, Candide, is taught that everything works out for the best. So even when the worst happens, it works out for the best. Again, I don't know if it's just my mood. Maybe it is Voltaire's writing. I will figure that out, I'm sure, because I have another piece by Voltaire that I can read on my bookshelves back there. But it really wasn't the book that I was in the mood to read. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek. I think it's supposed to be humorous, and I'm not picking that up. I mean, I am, but maybe I'm not finding it very humorous. I can see its value, and I can see the argument that Voltaire is trying to make, and I definitely appreciate that. The idea that not everything works out for the best, and perhaps you should shift your mindset a little bit in order to be better prepared for bad things that might happen in the future. Yeah, so kind of interesting. Not what I expected, but not in a bad way. And again, I think I need to finish before I fully share my thoughts on Voltaire's Candide. I did start Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, which is really, really interesting. I didn't quite connect how fluid of a writer Woolf is until I picked up this book. She is incredibly articulate, thoughtful, and that stream of consciousness of meandering in and out of different thoughts throughout Woolf's essays continues. You see that in Mrs. Dalloway, this fluidity of starting in one spot and moving in and out of the minds of characters, almost like film, like cinematic, where you're following a character around and then all of a sudden someone's walking past and then you turn and you're walking with them in that very cinematic way. Woolf does that with Mrs. Dalloway, and she is able to do that, but with her thoughts in a room of one's own. She's thinking about women, she's thinking about fiction, she's thinking about what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a woman writer, specifically writing fiction. And she's got a lot to say, and she takes you through her thought process and the development of her thoughts. It's phenomenal to see the mind of someone so articulate and so thoughtful at work. And I just feel like this is a gift that she bestowed upon us readers as an encouragement to think, as a bar. She set the bar for essays for me. I mean, she's just a really, really, really good writer. And I'm really glad that I picked up A Room of One's Own. So this book is actually from Gina Stanier, and I just greatly appreciate Gina's generosity. The final book I started was The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Last night I just was feeling like reading something a bit different than what I was reading. Yeah, I know I'm reading a lot of stuff, but I just had that moment where I was like, I think I want something a little bit different. And I knew I wanted to read The Bluest Eye. Oh, and I wasn't chosen to be a BookTube prize judge, so there's that. And so I had some space in my reading, and I was like, I'm just going to pick up The Bluest Eye because that's what I want to read. And I think it will be amazing. And it is indeed amazing. she actually immediately starts talking about Shirley Temple. I know I'm too young to have idolized Shirley Temple in her heyday, but I actually watched a lot of Shirley Temple as a young girl, and I loved her. She was like my hero in some ways. I had a dress that said Shirley Temple on it, and I thought she was just so beautiful. And so as Toni Morrison is discussing Shirley Temple through the eyes of one of her characters, I immediately was like, wow, this is very interesting. Mostly because I don't see a lot of references to Shirley Temple nowadays. She's kind of gone away. But still, I was delighted to see that. And then she also brings a perspective to Shirley Temple that I hadn't thought about. So not only am I being reminded of my childhood ways, my childhood loves, but they're being reframed for me in a different context. And I think that's really interesting and really fabulous. There is a lot of ideas about standards of beauty and what beauty is. These are ideas that I think about quite often, partly I think because I am a female living in the United States, and these ideas really bombard us, in my opinion. And part of it is just interesting to think about because Toni Morrison has a complete, at least in the Bluest Eye, she has a lot of thoughts that I hadn't really quite considered before. And so she's bringing a lot of new ideas to the table, which I really appreciate. Again, I didn't realize this, but I love books that make me think. I like books that challenge me and that make me push outside what I would normally think about and reframe them in a different way so that I can explore that thought pattern. For example, like I can explore the thoughts about Shirley Temple through the eyes of Toni Morrison, a person that I have a lot of opinions on, a person that I have a lot of opinions on myself. And I really enjoy that. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm arguing, listening to, and conversing with the author and their ideas of certain concepts, like beauty. So I'm really enjoying it. Toni Morrison is excellent. I didn't realize, again, how accessible her writing was, or is. She's not intimidating. I wondered if she was going to be really, really intimidating. But she's not. She's very accessible. That is everything that I have either read or am currently reading. A lot of really interesting and intriguing things. I don't know. I'm really enjoying my reading this year. I really enjoyed my reading last year as I had started BookTube and started to become a bit more of an adventurous reader. That adventuresome has really paid off for me. I really am enjoying it. Tell me what you're reading. I would really, really love to know. And that's all. So I guess that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye, guys.